In the NHL Entry Draft, there are always the stories of the prospects. Some of the guys are better than others, and some go on to be superstars. In the NHL Draft, though, there are once in a while players who don't live up to their hype. We've talked about busts before on this channel, and you've probably seen a ton of videos about busts in the NHL. But today we're taking a look at a player who wasn't necessarily a bust, but was somebody who indeed did not live up to the expectations that were laid out upon him when he was 17 years old. In this video, we're going back to the past, to the 2010 NHL Entry Draft. You may remember this draft as the Taylor-Tyler sweepstakes, wherein Taylor Hall eventually went first overall to the Edmonton Oilers, but the guy who went after Taylor and Tyler is the subject of today's video. Today we're asking the question, why was Erik Gudbranson drafted 3rd overall? Now, in order to take a look at why this is actually a meaningful question, we need to take a look at what Erik Gudbranson is today. Today, Erik Gudbranson is a 28-year-old right-handed defenseman, 6'5", 220 pounds, playing for the Anaheim Ducks. He has garnered a reputation as one of the more unreliable defensemen in terms of what he was supposed to bring and in terms of what he actually brings out there on the ice. I can't speak to his time in Pittsburgh or Anaheim super in-depth, but seeing this guy with the Vancouver Canucks for 3 seasons, I kinda have an idea of the profile that he has developed into. This year, Erik Gudbranson is at 44 games played, 4 goals and 5 assists with the Anaheim Ducks. He played 7 games with the Penguins, got 0 points, and he played 19 games with the Penguins last season, and he had 2 points. When Erik Gudbranson was with the Vancouver Canucks, he posted himself a very high, very whopping 19 points in 139 games. Yeah, it wasn't great. And in fact, the things that Erik Gudbranson did to his team were more negative than positive. He was quite frankly seen as a turnover machine, and was the scapegoat of a lot of Vancouver Canucks defensive lapses. That's what I saw in the 3 years watching him here in Vancouver, but we can't go that far without going back further in time to the Florida Panthers days. When the Vancouver Canucks traded for Erik Gudbranson all the way back there in 2016, I made a video about that. Yeah, I was around when that trade happened. And when I made that video, I got a whole bunch of comments from Florida Panthers fans saying how disappointed they were. First off, that Erik Gudbranson was gone, and second off, that Erik Gudbranson was gone. Lots of Panthers fans were telling me that they thought they won the trade because Jared McCann at the time looked like a very valuable prospect. When you add the picks, it makes the trade look even better for the Panthers. But the common consensus that I saw was that Erik Gudbranson was a legitimately good shutdown D, and that he was a loved member amongst the Florida Panthers fan base. I made the same defense back in that video a few years ago, but Erik Gudbranson developed into a pretty nice player at the time that he was acquired by Vancouver. But it all went downhill from there. And now, he's at a total of 518 games played in the NHL, and he only has 73 points. Now, I will say, it's kind of unfair for me to label the points as a measurement of failure, because that's never what Erik Gudbranson was supposed to be. Back in the 2010 NHL Entry Draft, Erik Gudbranson was touted by many as a very good, solid, efficient, and raw shutdown defenseman. Let's go to the HockeyWriters.com article on Erik Gudbranson that they published 10 years ago. Yeah, that's crazy. Check this out right here. Here are some quotes on Erik Gudbranson. He might be raw at this point, but he's the prototypical, big, physical, skilled defenseman that every GM and scout covets. He had a good sophomore year, but was limited somewhat as he battled a knee injury as well as a lengthy bout with mononucleosis. While he has tremendous upside, the team that selects him in June will likely have to be patient, should everything go as expected and planned for the young blue liner. However, that team will be rewarded with an intelligent defenseman with great character, who possesses superior leadership ability. That's all said and done, and in fact, it was the Florida Panthers who decided to take Gudbranson 3rd overall in that draft after the very, very highly coveted Taylor and Tyler forwards. Here are some more quotes. No fewer than two scouts called TSN, they now rate the Kingston Frontenac's Erik Gudbranson, who is a rock-hard defenseman, ahead of Cam Fowler. He's a huge defender, communicates on the ice well, supports his partner well, good shot, moves the puck with authority, crisp and hard passes. He has a long reach and he uses it. The more we at North American Central Scouting watch this kid, the more we are convinced he has the potential to become a franchise defenseman who can quarterback a power play. Although there are some concerns about his propensity to get hurt and the fact that he still has a lot to learn about the defensive side of the game, his toughness, offensive sense, and hockey IQ make him an attractive prospect. That was from Mark Siddell of the Hockey News, and that is one of the quotes that I think hasn't really looked all too great 10 years down the line. Sure, maybe when he was 17, 18, his offensive sense and his IQ could have made him seem like a great prospect, but not really. The offensive sense hasn't blossomed at all in Erik Gudbranson's game. The guy doesn't put up any points, and his hockey IQ, at least according to his time from Vancouver, wasn't really on to display either, especially in his own zone. The guy would give up so many giveaways. Let's continue. Gudbranson, to me, is a guaranteed long-term NHLer. In my opinion, Gudbranson is another Chris Pronger type. What he brings that Pronger really didn't do much of, though, is that he'll fight. He is some kind of tough. Chris Pronger is mean and will hit you. Gudbranson will hit you and fight you. Pronger is 3 inches taller than Gudbranson, so maybe Dion Phaneuf would be an even better comparison. It's actually kind of ironic, because Dion Phaneuf's reputation in the NHL later became known as a pylon, and that's something that Erik Gudbranson sometimes exhibited with the Ducks. He did that a lot with the Canucks, I will say that. But it's really weird taking a look at these comments 10 years down the line after Erik Gudbranson has indeed accomplished an established NHL career. And of course, I'm not going to take that away from the guy. He has 500 NHL games played. But the fact of the matter is, he really just isn't all that good. And if you take a look at the draft stock and what he built for himself, he built himself a profile that looked to depict a very, very good NHL defenseman down the line. His risk-reward analysis rating says that he was a 2.5 out of 5 risk and a 4.5 out of 5 reward. That means that the risk in taking a player like this and having him bust was very low. His NHL potential, according to this website, was a top-pairing physical blue liner with offensive upside. Offense is nowhere near what Erik Gudbranson is capable of doing today. And in fact, let's take a look at some of the flaws and the aspects he needs to work on. These are the 2 points they have labeled out over here. He coughed up the puck too often in this year's OHL playoffs. Well, I'll tell you what, he coughs up the puck a lot too when he plays in the NHL. His offensive skills are still quite raw. That is something that is probably as raw today as it was back then, because even back in the OHL, Gudbranson's best season with the Kingston Frontenacs was 34 points in 44 games a year after he was drafted. That's a fairly interesting profile that a lot of people can take a look at and say, yeah, you know, if he does improve his offense, he can get those points at the NHL level. But the thing is, he just didn't. Because of the potential that Erik Gudbranson had back then, where he could be a really solid defensive defender who can chip in the offensive side of things, they said that his player comparisons were Chris Pronger, Dion Phaneuf, Shea Weber, and Brent Burns. And the profile that he built for himself, where he looked like he could be a top 2 franchise defenseman, is why he was drafted 3rd overall. Now, I will give him credit. Panthers fans really did seem to like Gudbranson, but when he came to Vancouver, it literally took like a month for Vancouver fans to really, I don't want to use any harsh language in this one, but really have a differing opinion on the guy. And now, a few trades later, he's made some NHL money. He's still in the league today, playing for one of the worst teams in the Anaheim Ducks. He's playing with Del Zotto on a pairing, I believe, which is even crazier. But all it took was 10 years for Erik Gudbranson to go from a potential franchise-defining defenseman to Erik Gudbranson. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Social Trust 99, and bye.